Hi, I'm Kathryn Brookshier. Kira and I are both UX researchers at Indeed, and we've both been at the company about 2 years. Kira has expertise on the job seeker side, whereas I work on the employer side, and together we help people get jobs.
Hi, I'm Kira Cassels. Today we are going to talk to you about problems we encounter as team of one UX researchers, different types of traditional concept tests, how to use Blueprint Fidelity, and how Blueprint Fidelity concept tests can improve outcomes. As a researcher, you always need to figure out how to do more with less. There's never enough time. And today we're going to share with you a method that will allow you to do more with less and to gather compelling insights in a fast way. But first, we would like to share with you some stories. I once worked as the sole researcher on a team of UX designers, product managers, and content strategists who had many big ideas. Everyone got excited, wanted to move quickly, and committed themselves to turning those ideas into features or products. Eventually, I was brought into the conversation and was asked to conduct research. Multiple times, my team found itself in a futile attempt to build an interesting, maybe even beautifully designed feature or product with no demonstrated reason behind it. We put a fully functional prototype in front of users. It went through usability testing with flying colors, but when it rolled out, users did not respond well. But why? The team asked. Ultimately, my team had started with a solution instead of starting with a problem. Now Kathryn is going to share a story from her team.
My story is a little different. When I joined, my team was working on a new feature. This feature came about because a customer that pays our company a lot of money was having a problem with our product, and they had told their sales representative, who told another person, and that eventually made its way to our product team. Now they wanted to solve this problem for this important customer, and so they had a complex design. And so my very first project was a usability study on this new design. We recruited great people, we did the research. The results from the research were mixed. While this new feature wasn't going to hurt, it wasn't going to help either. But because it was for an important customer, the team decided to press on, took engineers off of different projects, and dedicated themselves to this particular feature for 3 months. After launch, it became clear that this wasn't being used by users. And unfortunately, this meant we had wasted a lot of time and effort. This got me wondering, are we tackling the right problem?
Like we just illustrated in these stories, sometimes the team has already determined the solution, but may not have identified an actual problem. Or they may have a big problem that they've avoided finding solutions for. It's critical to identify the actual problem and answer the question, what do we need to build, before thinking about how you are going to build something. There are so many solutions out there. We just have to find the right one. We must ask ourselves if we are building the right thing before we ask ourselves if we're building the thing right. We just talked to you about problems we encounter as team of one UX researchers. Up next, we're going to talk to you about concept tests. Let's talk about what a concept test actually is. A concept test helps a team to identify if their idea will resonate with users, and it's extremely useful to validate early-stage concepts. Concept testing involves asking users for their thoughts and opinions on a concept or idea, and it's a very valuable tool to determine if the idea will actually be a success. The concepts tested are usually low fidelity and don't cause the team or users to get distracted by details often found in higher fidelity prototypes. With concept testing, we can answer, does anyone actually care about this idea? And if the answer to that question is yes, we might ask users and the team, is it being thought about and designed in the right way? By concept testing, a team reduces their risk of shipping a product that might flop. There are likely a few variants of concept tests that you may have encountered. First is market concept testing. Teams will present a new product idea to users in order to gauge their overall reactions to that idea. Additionally, this type of test can be helpful in helping the team to identify the most important parts of a concept. It helps the team to ask, if we built this, would anyone buy it or use it? And then there's UX concept testing. In UX concept testing, teams will often use storyboarding or comic strips to talk through a workflow with users and gauge if that workflow or story makes sense to users in addressing their issues. With this method, you can structure the testing through understanding if the idea would make a difference in the user's life rather than by walking through a single screen or concept. It truly is about the experience. Now, there are some potential issues with traditional UX concept testing. The concepts often take quite a bit of time to create. Teams often perceive this process as too slow and feel they would be better off starting to design or build right away. We've often heard, "We don't have time to get feedback on this idea," as a reason why teams don't conduct concept tests. Often people want their ideas to shine. Wireframes and other bare-bones style mock-ups or prototypes are often met with resistance from UX designers, who fear users will not get or understand the idea, and may perceive the idea or the design quality to be subpar. The level of copy is often too much or too little in traditional concept mocks or prototypes. Relevant content is too interesting for participants and may lead to users rabbit-holing on the exact content contained in the concept and not the concept itself. And irrelevant content is met with a similar result: too much focus on what the concept actually says and not what it is. With traditional concept testing, we may also miss the opportunity to do research at the right time and answer the right questions. Research needs to come in at the right time in order to identify the problem and valid solutions to that problem. With traditional concept testing, teams typically only test one concept, which leads to validation or invalidation of only one idea. At the beginning of the product development lifecycle, this is not the time for that. This can cause teams to prematurely decide on a solution.
There are gaps in what a traditional concept test tries to achieve, as Kira just reviewed. Blueprint Fidelity concept tests are a response to that, keeping the best parts and improving in the areas where they can be improved. Blueprint Fidelity concept testing has 4 elements to it. The first is Blueprint Fidelity rendering. As you can see, it looks like a design version of a blueprint. This gives us the gist of what is happening without the design details. Second is that it is architectural content only. As you can see, there are some key words on this page, but the rest of the copy has been abstracted away using blue lines. Third, Blueprint Fidelity relies on having multiple ideas. It's a portfolio of different approaches that tackle the same problem, understand which are most promising to users, and discarding the ideas that aren't performing as well. Having done this many times, I find that about 4 concepts is the sweet spot. Fourth, it is the idea alone. Each concept is a single page rendering. It doesn't require a workflow, and it doesn't need an entire ecosystem. Each concept must stand on its feet alone without accompanying materials. Let's talk about what Blueprint Fidelity isn't. Blueprint Fidelity is not a grayscale rendering of a full color design. Designers that we work with tell us that grayscale can make a concept feel lifeless, while using blue makes it feel alive. The blue color and varying levels of opacity is a way to represent the architecture of a design without having to put significant thought into the color choices. At this point, that's thinking too far ahead anyway. Second is that it is not content rich. We're not putting in real content, substitute content, or lorem ipsum in the design, all of which can be distracting when we conduct research with participants. Third, it's not only one idea. Blueprint Fidelity relies on the portfolio approach to make sure we're considering different ways to solve a problem. And fourth, it is not a workflow or a click-through prototype. Blueprint Fidelity is about succinctly representing each idea without having the ecosystem attached. Remember, concept testing focuses on big ideas. Blueprint Fidelity concept tests are useful for a number of reasons. Unlike traditional concept tests, they're fast in the beginning. You can create more ideas, and we can eliminate the time-consuming task of thinking through workflows, developing click-through prototypes, or even engineering live prototypes. The concepts also look polished. Designers love when their work looks beautiful for themselves, to show the team they're great at visual design, and to feel proud of the work when we put it in front of participants. Blueprint Fidelity just looks good, and it's visual enough that it often can be owned by design. Content abstraction also helps focus on the concept, which allows the team to get feedback on the concept itself and not specific copy. You can do what's right for your users sooner. We can determine these viable ideas early on in the process, and we don't need as much iteration later on in product development. And finally, you have multiple ideas that solve the same problem. Because of this, people on your team are able to push the envelope, ideate, come up with different and unique ways to solve this problem. Your first idea is not always your best idea, and it creates a more level playing field for multiple team members to contribute ideas, so you can take advantage of the unique perspectives that each of your coworkers has to offer. This method can be useful for different kinds of team of one researchers. You might be the UX of everything, conducting research, managing the product, doing the design. Or you might be a researcher who partners with a designer and a PM. Or you might be an embedded researcher on a large team, or maybe a service researcher supporting many different teams. Regardless of your unique situation, when used appropriately, this can help you improve the type of feedback that you're getting, with timely results in the product development lifecycle, and can show the value of research early on in the process to your team members and stakeholders. So far in this talk, we've covered problems we encounter as team of one researchers and concept tests. Up next, I'm going to be talking about using Blueprint Fidelity. For designing in Blueprint Fidelity, we are going to use one color at different levels of opacity. 100% is of course the full color, but we also use 75%, 50%, 25%, and 0%, which is of course white. Sticking to these different levels of opacity is going to give you some flexibility in the design and help you think about hierarchy, but it also limits the number of choices and gives you guardrails. Pick a great color. You've only got one. We happen to use 1199EE. As we heard earlier, gray looks lifeless. I'd recommend sticking to a shade of blue, given that we call it Blueprint Fidelity, but ultimately the choice is up to you. And take off how much stuff pops in the design. We're not using images, we're not using colors. This isn't about being a visual designer, this is about being a UX designer. Blueprint Fidelity helps focus the conversation on what the concept is achieving. To use Blueprint Fidelity, you have to think like an information architect. Consider hierarchy. This includes navigation, headings, subheadings, body copy. It forces you to systematically display certain elements. You should also use appropriate elements. A button should be a button. A line represents text. Use consistent patterns and components for each concept. And finally, use placement to your advantage, such as the upper right-hand corner for a profile icon. Consider patterns that people are familiar with, and think where your elements should go to match these established patterns. Finally, we're going to aim for the Goldilocks of detail. Our team, when doing this, usually starts with too much content. The bonus is now that you have all the content. Then we discuss what we want to learn, and we strip down the relevant content to the simplest possible form to get the feedback that we need. Let's take a look at what this might look like. Imagine I'm conducting research with employers. Here we have 3 different representations of a cover letter contained within a concept. On the right, we see one that is too detailed. It may be real content, but if someone is actually hiring for a marketing manager, this cover letter could be too interesting, and their feedback may be colored by the perceived quality of the candidate instead of the concept itself. Or it may not be relevant to the participant at all, like for someone hiring a barista. They may reject the content because they're commenting on the relevancy of the content. Lorem ipsum also falls into this category. Participants don't typically know what lorem ipsum is, and it can confuse many of them. On the left, we see an example of Blueprint Fidelity with not enough detail. What is supposed to be content is entirely abstracted. A participant can misinterpret what this is, not know, in this example, that it is even supposed to be a cover letter, and consequently may get off track when providing feedback. In the middle, we can see just enough content. To whom it may concern indicates that this is a cover letter, but the body copy is abstracted away. We can assume the content is in there. It's great because it gives enough interpretable flexibility that participants can fill in the blank based on their perspective and experience. It provides a great gateway to feature inspiration. This just enough approach really encourages participants' imagination. Here are some sample questions for your study plan. First, have the participants describe what is happening on the page. This helps you determine if the participants understand what's going on and reassures your stakeholders. It lets us know if we need to reorient the participant. But don't worry about this too much. I've done this many times, and I've only ever had to reorient a participant once. Next, ask, when would having access to a tool like this affect your workflow? This helps people imagine exactly when, not how, but when this would be useful for them. And some will say, I wouldn't use this, which is still incredibly valuable feedback. And it gets you closer to the sentiment that they actually have. Finally, ask, what features would this tool need to support your workflow? This provides feature inspiration to the team, especially when there's a pattern among respondents, and lets participants advocate for what they would need for the concept to work for them. To make your research as rigorous as possible, show the concepts to participants in different orders. This helps us avoid recency bias by counterbalancing the concepts. And have participants stack rank the concepts at the conclusion of your study. Taken across all the participants, this can help you identify the best ideas and the ideas that are less well loved. It also helps people express their true opinions about a concept and its features. Many participants like every concept. This is often known as the good subject effect. And you might have a few negative Nancys who don't like any of the concepts as they appear. Having people rank these ideas helps tease out which are the most relevant to the target audience. And finally, don't forget that you can mix and match the best features. Not every concept comes with the same set, and you can identify the most valuable features from each concept. Once you have the results, the team can pull ideas from different concepts and integrate those into the final design direction as necessary. So far in this talk, we've covered problems we encounter as Team of One researchers, concept tests, and using Blueprint Fidelity. Up next, Kira is going to tell us about how Blueprint Fidelity concept tests improve outcomes.
Let's discuss how Blueprint Fidelity can help your team. First, it encourages your team to fall in love with the problem. It motivates the team to put together a portfolio of ideas instead of just one. It allows teams to include ideas that may be waiting in the wings, things they may not have otherwise gotten feedback on. It also encourages participants to share the problems a concept will or will not solve in their real lives. Second, it lessens the amount of time required to get early feedback. It's fast by design and allows the team to not only design quickly, but also to learn quickly and to fail quickly at a very low cost. Blueprint Fidelity allows the team to get feedback early on in the product development lifecycle, which leads to time savings later on. By learning what resonates with your users early and what doesn't, the team is able to build the right thing the first time around. Third, Blueprint Fidelity improves communication. Participants perceive Blueprint Fidelity designs as quality and are excited to provide feedback. Because it looks good, team members have confidence that users will get or understand the idea they are trying to convey in their designs. Unlike typical concept mocks or prototypes, Blueprint Fidelity still generates that excitement from the team that a high-fidelity prototype might. The team gets excited about which ideas are going to work and which ideas aren't. Fourth, it helps your team to focus participant feedback. With Blueprint Fidelity, participant feedback is focused on the concept itself, nothing more and nothing less. The content provides just enough information so it can inspire participants to offer ideas for new features. And it can also inspire participants to let us know about problems they have in their real lives that a concept will solve. These may be pain points the team may not have known about otherwise. It encourages participants to provide honest feedback, which is always critical. Lastly, it helps teams to improve the quality of their research and ultimately the product they create. Blueprint Fidelity prompts the team to get back to best research practices, to conduct research at the right time and answer those right questions. By getting feedback at the right time and asking those right questions, Blueprint Fidelity allows the team to gain insight into those new user problems that the team may not have been familiar with before. Blueprint Fidelity is best used in a few different scenarios. As I mentioned in my story at the very beginning of this talk, when your team says, "I have an idea and it's a possible solution," you need to first make sure the team has actually defined a problem that the solution solves for. Blueprint Fidelity can help you better understand the problem that you're trying to solve for. You may have a solution, but no problem. And as Kathryn mentioned in her story at the very beginning of this presentation, the team may have a huge user problem that they just haven't gotten to solving because they don't know where to begin. Blueprint Fidelity can help you successfully identify a concept or multiple concepts that might work to solve for those big problems. A researcher in any of these roles could be experiencing challenges with time, communication, unfocused feedback, lack of focus on the problem. Blueprint Fidelity is an effective method for all different types of researchers. Let's recap on how to use Blueprint Fidelity. Use only one color when designing in Blueprint Fidelity. Think like an information architect. Which information or content is critical to have and which isn't? Aim for the Goldilocks of detail. Don't include too much content, but don't include too little. When conducting research in Blueprint Fidelity, have participants describe what is happening on the page. Ask, when would this affect their workflow? And ask what features it would need in order to get feature inspiration from participants. We hope you can use Blueprint Fidelity with your team to build the right thing before you build the thing right.
Developing this with our colleagues at Indeed was a team effort. We'd like to thank John Palacios, Nicole Martinez, and Kareem Naguib for helping us refine Blueprint Fidelity concept testing to support research, design, and content strategy. We really couldn't have done this without them. As a bonus for all conference attendees, we are providing a small asset library of Blueprint Fidelity components to get you started. I'll give you the link to a Medium article and share more in the talk after. Thanks.